them touchdown passes.
Peyton bounces around, throws. The ball will be caught. Julius Thomas, touchdown, Denver.
What is up, guys? In this segment of Beyond the Sport, I'm going to be breaking down the current state of the MLB and kind of going into why the MLB is in a really bad place right now. And as you can tell, as it's rather obvious, I do have a new setup, a new microphone. Hopefully this is going to make the audio sound crisper and really make the entire video much more enjoyable and soothing to the ears, as that is the purpose for this. I'm also doing a podcast with some friends of mine, and I did podcasts at ASU and will continue to do so in my sophomore year, but I might as well plug it while I'm at it. And that podcast is called Honey Bunches of Bros. Me and a group of friends from back home, as we got together during this quarantine to make the most of all things and pretty much just have pretty laid-back, casual conversations about just really anything from childhood memories, old TV shows, even all the way to cereal brands, as you can probably tell by the name of Honey Bunches of Bros. But it's a really fun podcast, and make sure to check it out if you get the chance to, as this mic is going to be in full usage when it comes to that. But without further ado, without all this extra stuff going into this opening portion of this episode, let's get into it. And of course, more recently, just like I said at the beginning of this video, what's going on since then has been nothing but a disaster. We've seen other sports leagues that have figured it out. The NHL was the first major North American sports league that had a return to play format. Then you see the NBA have theirs come out. You see the MLS come out. And after all of this that had taken place, it had actually prompted ESPN to have Mike Greenberg do some interviews with the commissioners around each respective sports league so that they can kind of break it down for everyone, for the general public, and try and ease people's minds so that they can give them an idea of what it's going to look like and what we should expect as fans watching the games from home, being that there won't be fans in attendance for all this. And this was something that took place among the 5 commissioners of the North American sports leagues, and every single one of them said what they had to say. They, described it as it is on paper, and the only one, which was the glaring weak spot, was Commissioner Rob Manfred in the MLB, as they don't have a return to play format that is set and ready to go at any given moment for a return to the season like the other leagues do. This was a terrible look for the MLB, as they continue to shoot themselves in the foot, it seems, with these negotiations, which are going absolutely nowhere. With these negotiations, what we're seeing is the owners and the Players Association are gaining absolutely no ground. And what's so frustrating about all this for just really everyone that's involved with the game, whether it's the fans, the people whose jobs are at stake within these organizations, or the players, or the owners, or the front office members, everyone, you name it. What's so frustrating is it seemed like early on during all this, before the NHL, before the NBA, and before MLS had their plans to return alongside the NFL as well. I forgot to mention that. All these other leagues, before they even figured out what they were going to do, it was the MLB that came out with a proposal. There was one that was on the more unrealistic side, but then all of a sudden they came out with another one. It seemed like day by day they were finding creative ways to give a chance to the idea of returning, and it was all promising signs until eventually the first one submitted to the Players Association was declined. It's like all of a sudden, okay, let's just take a step back. Let's take a look at it again. Let's look through it, and let's try and get on the same page between the owners and the players. And it just seemed like from that point forward, nothing was done to do that. There was no sort of compromise between either side. And at first, I thought, well, I'm shocked. I thought the players would be looking to get back out on the field. But then all of a sudden, as the days went by, all of a sudden it's weeks, it's almost months. You kind of look at it from the perspective of the players' sake, and the owners just really aren't being very fair. They're not trying to compromise in any way to give up any ground in this discussion so that they can find a solution and have a return to play format in place like the other leagues have found a way to do. And let me just say, it's not perfect in these other leagues. We're seeing in the NBA, guys aren't, necessarily looking to play. I know the same goes for the NHL. I know Roman Polak, he was one of those guys that says he's really not looking to return to the ice at any point. So it's not perfect for any of those sports leagues. But at the end of the day, they do have plans in place, and it seems like they've been able to make compromise, which is something that the MLB has not even come close to. And I think that that's a big concern because the owners continue to throw out the same deal every single time, 3 times in a row now. It seems like they're not really willing to make any change to give the players a reason to want to return, and they're just on 2 completely different pages right now. And what's come out of all this being that the players are not happy, the owners are not happy, and they're not finding any solutions to the situation. It only continues to get worse. Is now the Players Association is prepared to file grievance with the MLB if they are willing to put out 50 to 60 games on the table. And pretty much what this means is the players are going to say that they didn't feel they were given a legitimate proposal in place that both sides benefited from. And now all of a sudden the MLB is very frustrated with them, and they're saying that they're not able to work with them until they're able to consider dropping that lawsuit and finding more common ground, something of which neither side's been able to do. And it just seems like every day it gets worse, and it's a huge concern because it's such a bad look. That's the point of this video, I'm making this video to bring to attention, bring it to light that the MLB is really harming themselves in this situation because I know there's a lot of money at stake, and the MLB is a business at the end of the day. I'm aware of that. That's how the owners look at it. They are the ones that stand to lose money, and it's not a good situation. In fact, it's a terrible situation, but they're the only one that's not willing to cut their losses and find a solution. And the problem is it's putting more people and their livelihoods at stake because, like I said earlier, besides the players and the owners, there's a lot of people who are working within these organizations that they're going to be the ones that suffer the most through all this if there is no season, because that's the worst case scenario. If you don't have a season, that's no revenue being generated for an entire 365-day span. That's horrible. That's the worst case scenario by far, and there's so much damage that can come out of that, and that's why it's so frustrating to some of these people that they're not willing to make compromise so that they can have a return, because although the circumstances aren't ideal, and although the owners don't want to have to pay the players more than the contracts are technically worth, that's where the prorated salaries come into play, it's just something that has to be done, because if they're not willing to do that, then they're going to simply lose out on all the money they could potentially make, because sure, not having fans, the sale of merchandise, and the different sales such as tickets and the sales such as the vendors and all the food that fans are going to buy when they're at games, there's a lot that goes into that from that personal experience at the parks. But they're not even going to have a chance at TV revenue if they're not playing games at all. And I think that this is only going to continue to harm the league if they're not willing to find a solution to all this. Because, again, they're going to be the only sport that is not willing to find a way to have a return. I cannot stress enough how big of a deal this is, because while the MLB is sitting at home, the players are on their couches watching the other leagues resume play, they are, just like I said, they're at home watching, and they're not participating, and their fans aren't able to watch games. And something that I haven't gotten into in this video, and a video that I kind of regret not making now, but I'll throw it in here since I am making it currently, and that's the fact that the UFC has capitalized big time. They have done the best job they possibly could, because they've made the most of all this COVID-19 affecting all these other leagues. They jumped into the driver's seat, and President Dana White has made the most of this opportunity by having fights. He pushed so hard to make sure that there could be a return to their sport and their fans could watch that. And because of that being the only sport, or only true sport I should say at the time besides esports being on TV, they got a new following, and their ratings have shot through the roof, and all of a sudden you're seeing a new fan base gravitating towards the sport, because all the people that are maybe basketball or football or baseball fans or hockey fans who are accustomed to watching those sports on a daily basis aren't able to watch that. All of a sudden, they just want sports because they're sports fans at the end of the day, and they turn on their TV and they see it's UFC Fight Night. So, hey, let's check it out. Let's watch it. All of a sudden, oh, I really like this. And these people are realizing that this is a great sport, and a sport that might not have been that big, especially compared to the Goliaths of the world, like the way the NFL is for America. People are starting to watch it, and it's growing the brand. They're doing a good job of marketing all the fights, and people are starting to gravitate towards it. And all of a sudden, as soon as life is back to normal, those are going to become real fans that are going to continue to watch it. And I just applaud Dana White for what he's done. I don't agree with some of the decisions that he does within the UFC, but this was one of those where he did an excellent job. Fight Island is something that's going to happen for UFC 251, and I'm excited, and I know a lot of other people are. But that's the big point with all this, and that's that these other leagues are going to return. Fans are going to watch them, and all of a sudden, baseball's going to be in the rearview mirror, and no one's going to be watching it. I myself am a huge baseball fan. I have been my entire life. I've played the game since I was little, and it's something that's very near and dear to me. I love the game for what it is, and there's nothing I love more than watching it like I do with all other major sports like the NHL, the NFL, and the NBA. I can't get enough of it. I absolutely love it, and I'm drawn towards it, but I'm willing to realize that there's not always fans like myself. There's more casual fans out there, and that goes to say for all sports. And the MLB is one of those sports where the following is not what it used to be. It's always known as America's favorite pastime. It's one of those sports which isn't as big as it used to be. The NFL is the powerhouse of America. Everyone knows that. It dominates the ratings. And then there's the NBA that follows suit. And then the MLB and the NHL are fighting for that third spot. And I'd have to get the numbers. I'd have to pull them up. I probably will in this video when I'm editing it, so you can really get an idea. But the point is, baseball is a sport, its popularity seems to decrease every single year. And it's something that's a little bit concerning because when you see these other sports returning, and the MLB is not one of them, that following is going to continue to decrease at a steady pace because although there's plenty of diehards who love the game and want to watch it as much as they can, like myself, not everyone's that way. Not everyone's going to continue to watch the game, and people over time are going to lose interest, whether the game wants them to or not. And I think that that is the biggest takeaway from all of this, and why baseball as a whole, and the MLB as a league specifically, are in a really bad spot right now. And that is why it is so crucial, I cannot stress this enough, that there is a return to the season that would have happened. Because although these circumstances are difficult, there's a lot of obstacles in front of them. We see other leagues doing it. They're finding ways. They're being creative, and they're adapting to what's in front of them. Rob Manfred and the MLB and all the owners and the players themselves have to find a way. They have to find a way to do it. It's plain and simple, because if they don't, I as a baseball fan am really concerned for what the future is going to look like should they not be able to. Yes, this video was on the longer side, and I apologize for that. It's a lot of content coming at you, a lot of stuff. I know that editing this is going to take a little bit longer than I'd like it to in comparison to other videos that I've created, but I had to make it this way, and I had to say everything that I possibly can because it's a game that I really care about, and I'm really worried about it. I really am, and I know I'm not the only one. There's a lot of friends of mine, a lot of people that I've talked to that are just as, I don't want to say pessimistic, but definitely not on the optimistic side of things with the current state of the game and the direction that it's heading. And all I can hope is that things change, and that hopefully by the time I even make this video, it won't even be relevant. And what I mean by that is I hope that there's a solution in place and they have a format in which they can confidently say baseball is going to happen in 2020, and that'll make this video less significant, and that's okay to me because I know that that means the greater goal's been achieved and that there will be a return to the game that we all love. And that's all I have here for this video today. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to follow at Beyond the Sport on Instagram. That way you can check out bonus content and get the notifications as to when I will be putting videos up on the basis that I do. Thanks as always. Have a good one.